Burn the map you were given. It was drawn for a life you were never meant to live. Small roots, safe turns, a future that depends on permission instead of power. What I'm about to place in your hands is not motivation, it is direction. You do not need more information. You are not confused. You are overexposed. Too many voices, too many methods, too many half-truths have fractured your attention. A man cannot build anything while changing plans every week. This is not a collection of ideas. It is a sequence. Miss the order and nothing works. Follow it precisely and progress becomes dull, steady, and unstoppable. That is how real blueprints behave. They remove debate. I will not urge you. I will not inspire you. I will show you where to stand, what to do first, and what to ignore completely. When a man has the right structure, effort stops leaking. If you are willing to close every other door for a moment and listen as a builder listens before laying the first stone, you will recognize this immediately. Not because it sounds impressive, but because it feels exact. This is the blueprint. Take it or keep searching. Before a single stone can be laid upon another, the ground must be made ready. No builder begins with walls or with beams or with lofty designs. He begins by clearing the earth, removing what is unsound, leveling the ground, and preparing it to bear the weight of the structure that will rise upon it. In the same manner, before a man may take hold of a blueprint for greatness, he must first prepare the workshop of his own mind. A mind that is cluttered, restless, confused, or divided cannot receive plans of any worth. It is a soil choked by weeds, incapable of bearing harvest. This truth must be accepted without resistance, for it is the first stone upon which every other part of this blueprint rests. Most men rush toward action without first ordering their thoughts. They want to move, to labor, to advance outwardly, for they imagine progress is made through motion alone. Yet motion without direction leads nowhere. Work without clarity exhausts the spirit. Activity without purpose consumes years and leaves a man no closer to the life he desires. I have seen men labor themselves into the grave while another, working with half the exertion but double the order, surpasses them with ease. The difference is not in strength but in structure. A mind must be cleaned before it can be guided. It must be stilled before it can obey. It must be emptied of doubt, noise, and contradiction before it can hold a definite aim. This cleansing is not an act of passivity. It is the most serious work a man will ever undertake, for it requires him to confront the forces within himself that have long gone unchallenged. His fears, his scattered hopes, his idle wishes, his imagined failures, his habitual uncertainties. These must be swept from the inner chamber if he is to build anything worthy. The blueprint I place before you cannot take root in a mind that negotiates with old habits. It cannot enter a mind that listens to 10 voices at once. It cannot function in a mind that has not chosen which master it will serve, drifting or direction. Therefore, the first duty of any man seeking to transform his life is to become the governor of his own mental world. This alone will save 10 years of wandering, for most men lose a decade not from lack of ability, but from lack of order. Observe the conduct of Edwin C. Barnes, whose rise from poverty to partnership with Edison stands as one of the clearest demonstrations of mental readiness ever recorded. Barnes did not arrive at Edison's door with confusion in his heart. He arrived with one idea only, that he would become the business partner of the greatest inventor of his age. Every other possibility had been removed from his mind. His thoughts were clean. His purpose stood alone. Because he had cleared the inner ground, the blueprint of his desire could take root with extraordinary speed. It was not chance that carried him upward. It was the firmness of a prepared mind. I tell you plainly, a man must practice mental subtraction before he attempts mental addition. He must remove the remnants of abandoned aims, cast aside the worn garments of doubt, and release the claims of fear that bind him. Only then can he receive the plan that will make his advancement inevitable. Many men attempt to carry both their old selves and their new direction. They wonder why progress eludes them. They forget that a man cannot climb while holding tightly to the rung beneath him. Let me offer a truth that may trouble you. yet must be accepted if you are to rise. The greatest enemies of your progress are already in your own mind. Not competition, not scarcity, not the world outside, but the disorder within. Once the mind is ordered, even modest action produces remarkable results. When the mind is disordered, even great action yields little. Therefore, the first requirement of this blueprint is inner stillness. A man must learn to silence the unruly crowd of thoughts that clamor within him. He must quiet the imaginations that run wild, the worries that repeat themselves, and the memories that seek to dictate his future. This stillness is not emptiness. It is discipline. It is the firm hand of a master upon the workshop of his mind. You may ask how this stillness is achieved. It is achieved through dismissal, not through struggle. When an unhelpful thought arises, do not fight it. Dismiss it. When doubt appears, do not examine it. Reject it. When fear whispers, do not converse with it. Command it to leave. Over time, the mind learns whom it must obey. Through this practice, the inner world becomes clean, and clarity enters as naturally as light enters a room when the shutters are raised. Lincoln, whose wisdom guided a nation through storm, protected his inner stillness with meticulous care. Those who served near him remarked upon his calm, even in the face of unimaginable conflict. This calm was not the product of temperament alone, it was the product of discipline. He refused to allow the noise of his surroundings to become the noise of his mind. He reserved a space within himself where clarity could speak. And in that stillness, the blueprint of his actions took shape with precision. To prepare your mind properly, you must also choose a single direction, not 20, not 5. One direction. Until this is done, every thought you generate, every effort you expend, every plan you construct will be weakened by division. A mind that has not chosen cannot build. A mind that has chosen cannot be stopped. Say aloud and often, "My mind stands ready, ordered, and obedient to my aim." This affirmation is not a ritual, it is a command issued to the deeper part of your nature. Each repetition strengthens authority. Each repetition organizes your inner world. Each repetition draws your mind closer to the condition required for this blueprint to operate. Direction is more powerful than talent. Direction is more valuable than opportunity. Direction is the very foundation upon which the architecture of success rests. Without direction, a man becomes a wanderer. With direction, even the simplest man becomes a builder of destiny. Let me draw your attention to another example, Henry Ford. Before he created the machine that transformed the world, he created order within his own thought. He dismissed all suggestions that his idea was impractical. He rejected all voices predicting failure. He kept only the picture he intended to create. Because his mind was not scattered among alternatives, his work gained the concentrated force that only a prepared mind can generate. Preparation of the mind also demands the removal of unnecessary influences. A man must be selective about the words he hears, the conversations he entertains, and the company he keeps. The mind, being highly impressionable, absorbs the tone of its surroundings. If those surroundings are filled with doubt, gossip, and idle speculation, the mind becomes weakened. If they are filled with purpose, order, and seriousness, the mind becomes strengthened. A single hour in unwholesome companionship can undo a day of disciplined thought. This is why the early builders of enterprise surrounded themselves with capable men. Carnegie's cabinet of advisors was not a display of wealth. It was a necessity of mental order. He understood that the mind rises or falls according to the company within which it thinks. Thus, if you are to prepare your mind for this blueprint, you must be ruthless in your selection of influences. Preparation also requires that you regard yourself with a sense of solemn responsibility. You cannot rise while treating your own potential lightly. Most men handle their future with the delicacy of a man holding a feather, when in truth he holds a flame. If he is careless, the flame extinguishes. If he is attentive, the flame becomes a torch. Treat yourself as one carrying a flame. Understand this fully. A blueprint is useless in the hands of an undisciplined mind. Just as a master builder cannot lay stone upon a shifting foundation, you cannot advance without first stabilizing the ground upon which your future rests. Mental preparation also includes regulating emotion. Emotion, when allowed to run wild, distorts clear thinking. But emotion, when disciplined, fuels action. You must hold your feelings as a skilled rider holds the reins of his horse, firmly, but without cruelty. If your emotions dominate your mind, your blueprint will crumble. If your mind governs your emotions, your blueprint will thrive. As you remove the internal clutter and cultivate order, others will begin to sense a new quality in your manner. You will speak with fewer words and greater weight. You will no longer appear divided. People may not understand what has changed, but they will feel it. A man with a prepared mind carries a presence that cannot be imitated. It is the presence of someone who has ceased drifting. Preparation also demands inner honesty. A man must face himself without flattery. He must identify the habits that weaken him, the attitudes that shrink him, and the tendencies that lead him into waste. These must be acknowledged without excuse and corrected without delay. 1 hour of honest self-examination can save years of misdirected effort. The mind that refuses to prepare will always seek the next plan, the next method, the next promise of quick reward. But the man who prepares properly discovers that the right plan reveals itself to him with clarity. He no longer chases solutions. Solutions come to him. His prepared mind draws them in. This first part of the blueprint is not a suggestion. It is a law. It is the foundation upon which all future parts depend. Without preparation, the structure collapses. With preparation, the structure becomes inevitable. A blueprint is worthless unless it is followed in the order intended by its designer. You would not begin a structure by placing the roof upon bare soil, nor would you hang doors where walls have not yet risen. Yet this is precisely what the average man attempts in the building of his life. He begins at the end, imagines he can skip the middle, and wonders why the foundation crumbles beneath his feet. He mistakes excitement for structure and confusion for effort. But the man who follows proper sequence rises steadily, quietly, and predictably, as though guided by unseen hands. All achievement obeys order. There is no exception in the history of human advancement. Every inventor, statesman, leader, builder, and prosperous man has followed this law, though many could not describe it. Their success did not come from luck, nor from charm, nor from sudden flashes of genius. It came from aligning themselves, knowingly or not, with the sequence through which desire passes before it becomes reality. Once a man understands this sequence, he ceases wandering. He becomes methodical. His life becomes like a straight road, not a tangled path. That alone can save 20 years. The first part of this sequence is direction, not desire, direction. A man may desire greatness, but until he chooses where greatness must appear, his desire remains a vapor. Once direction is fixed, desire takes form. When Barnes determined that he would become the business partner of Edison, he did not spend a month choosing alternatives. He chose once. He obeyed the choice. The moment direction became definite, the sequence began moving. He stepped into a current greater than his own strength. Direction must be followed by decision. A man who decides once gains strength. A man who decides repeatedly weakens his will. Decision is not a thought. It is a command issued to the self. If a man continues reconsidering the same matter, he has not decided. Decision seals the mind. It closes the door to retreat. It establishes the tone of future conduct. Without decision, sequence cannot proceed. Once direction and decision are established, the mind must produce a picture of the desired end. This picture is not fantasy nor idle dreaming. It is a pattern given to the subconscious, which accepts all repeated images as instruction. Edison imagined the incandescent lamp long before it glowed. Bell imagined the transmission of voice long before a wire carried sound. Burbank imagined plants expressing new qualities long before nature surrendered them. Their imagination was obedient. It followed their direction and their decision. This is the third part of the sequence. The fourth part is repetition. A picture held once holds no power. A picture held repeatedly gains force. It becomes a mold into which the subconscious pours action, opportunity, thought, and circumstance. Repetition does not decorate the picture. It engraves it. Many men lose years because they treat imagination as a momentary pleasure instead of a daily discipline. They create one picture today, erase it tomorrow, and wonder why the mind never produces results. They destroy their own sequence. The fifth part is faith, not as an emotion, but as a state of expectancy. Faith is born from repetition. It grows from the mind's familiarity with its own chosen image. A man does not need to strain for faith. He needs only to repeat the image long enough for belief to take root. Faith is simply the mind's acceptance that what it repeats must eventually appear. It is the quiet certainty of direction. Without faith, the sequence weakens, for faith is the glue that holds the parts together. The sixth part is ordered action. Action without order scatters strength. Action with order concentrates it. A man must take steps that align with his picture. He must move as though his aim were inevitable. The world grants much to the man who acts with quiet certainty, for certainty signals identity, and identity shapes outcome more than ambition does. Sequence is the secret behind every sudden success. The world sees the final step and calls it luck, but the final step is merely the visible end of an invisible order. Men do not rise by accident. They rise because they follow sequence. Those who ignore sequence drift for decades. Those who obey sequence compact decades into years. The seventh part is alignment of speech. A man must speak in harmony with his picture. He must not allow careless words to contradict his direction. Words are commands issued to the subconscious. They must reinforce, not weaken. A man who speaks doubt trains his mind to expect defeat. A man who speaks calmly of his aim trains his mind to expect fulfillment. You need not boast. You need not convince others. You must simply refuse to utter what contradicts your direction. Say often, I obey the order that shapes the outcome. This reminds the subconscious that your life moves according to sequence, not mood. The eighth part is consistency of emotion. Emotion must be governed. A man whose feelings swing from excitement to discouragement cannot follow sequence. His mind becomes like a ship rocked by waves, drifting off course. Emotion must warm effort, not burn it. The man who remains steady gains strength each day. He is like one walking upon firm ground while others stumble upon sand. Henry Ford embodied consistency. He was not carried by bursts of enthusiasm. He was not toppled by waves of frustration. His emotional temperature remained within the range that supported clear judgment. Because he did not abandon the sequence in moments of discouragement, the sequence carried him toward triumph when others abandoned the path. The ninth part is environment. A man must shape his surroundings to protect his direction. The subconscious is sensitive to atmosphere. Disorder weakens purpose. Noise scatters thought. Undisciplined company dilutes seriousness. A deliberate environment strengthens the sequence by removing unnecessary resistance. It becomes the silent ally of progress. The 10th part is companionship, or what I call useful companionship. A man must align himself with those whose minds strengthen his own. When several minds unite with harmony and purpose, their combined power exceeds the sum of their abilities. This force, which I have often described as a master mind, becomes the wind behind a man's steps. The 11th part is habit of advancement. A man must take some action each day that moves him forward. Even the smallest movement strengthens sequence. A day without advancement weakens the chain-linking desire to fulfillment. Advancement is the rhythm that keeps the sequence alive. The 12th part is identity. The man must begin shaping himself into the one who naturally attains his aim. The blueprint cannot be fulfilled by the old identity. Sequence collapses when the builder refuses to change. As the aim grows, the man must grow. As the vision expands, The character must expand. Identity is the seal that completes the sequence. The 13th part is persistence without interruption. If a man stops, even briefly, the sequence weakens. The subconscious loses momentum. The inner picture dims. Doubt creeps in. But if he continues, quietly, steadily, without dramatic strain, the sequence becomes unstoppable. Time itself begins to yield. Edison did not stop after dozens, hundreds, or thousands of attempts. He continued. And because he continued, he outlasted every barrier. Persistence is the hand that guides the blueprint from start to finish. The 14th part is faith in the unseen stages. Much progress occurs where the eye cannot see. The subconscious arranges circumstances long before they become visible. A man must trust the invisible work. Impatience breaks sequence. Patience strengthens it. Finally, the 15th part is completion, the stage where the invisible becomes visible. The result is not sudden. It is the natural conclusion of the sequence. When a man obeys the sequence fully, success becomes as certain as harvest after seed. Now that you understand the hidden order through which success grows, you are ready for the next part, the discipline that turns this blueprint from thought into structure, from plan into progress, from potential into certainty. A blueprint, no matter how exact, is still only a pattern until the builder lifts his tools and begins the work. Many men admire plans but never execute them. They delight in possibilities but flee from the discipline required to convert possibility into structure. Their efforts leak. Their energy escapes through doubt, hesitation, distraction, and disorder. They possess direction yet remain stagnant because they have not learned the art of execution without leak. But the man who learns this art becomes unstoppable. His progress may appear quiet, but it is irreversible, for each day builds upon the last with unbroken loyalty. Execution begins with silent force, a principle I have witnessed in every man who rose to significance through the steady labor of his own hands and mind. Silent force is not dramatic. It makes no announcement. It does not rely upon bursts of excitement nor depend upon the praise of others. It is the quiet endurance of one who works faithfully, hour after hour, day after day, whether the world watches or not. Silent force does not tire quickly, nor does it demand comfort. It advances like a river cutting through stone, not through violence, but through constancy. Henry Ford was a master of silent force. He was surrounded by men of greater mechanical skill and broader formal education, yet none surpassed him in disciplined execution. Where others grew discouraged after a handful of attempts, Ford pressed forward through hundreds. His early failures did not anger him. They instructed him. His emotions remained steady because he understood that the outcome he pursued required endurance, not brilliance. Silent force became his quiet companion, guiding him through each failure until the pattern of success revealed itself. Many of his competitors possessed talent. Few possessed silent force. If a man would execute without leak, he must first harness this principle. He must learn to move without impulse, to persevere without spectacle, and to continue without applause. A man guided by silent force conserves his energy for his work. He does not waste it seeking admiration. He does not spill it through complaint. He does not scatter it by reconsidering his aim each week. His strength remains within him because he does not squander it outwardly. Say often, my actions move in one direction with unbroken loyalty. This affirmation trains the subconscious to maintain consistency. It teaches the mind that action is a form of devotion to one's own purpose. Each repetition reinforces identity. Each repetition strengthens discipline. Over time, the man finds that his conduct reflects the affirmation without effort, as though it were the natural expression of his nature. Another part of execution is the law of daily advancement. Most men believe progress must be large to matter. They imagine success demands monumental efforts, and when they cannot perform such efforts daily, they perform nothing. This is folly. Great structures are not built by occasional surges of labor. They are built by the steady placing of stones. A single hour of honest work, repeated daily, produces more progress than 10 hours of frantic labor performed once a month. Daily advancement compacts time. It transforms years of wandering into months of steady rise. Edison practiced daily advancement with extraordinary devotion. His journals reveal days of small experiments, each yielding little, but each adding something to the larger aim. He did not rely on inspiration. He relied on rhythm. His daily efforts nourished his mind like water nourishes seed. Over time, the seed grew roots so deep that success could no longer be withheld. When the lamp was at last perfected, the world called him a genius. But those who observed him knew the truth. He was a man of daily advancement, nothing more, nothing less. You must also guard against the great destroyer of execution, hesitation. When a man hesitates, he interrupts the sequence connecting thought to action. The subconscious becomes uncertain. Momentum falters. The mind weakens. Hesitation is more dangerous than failure, for failure strengthens if met properly, while hesitation corrodes from within. A failed action teaches. A hesitated action teaches nothing. Therefore, a man must train himself to move promptly once his direction is known. Decision must lead immediately to effort. The longer he waits, the more he doubts. Another source of leakage is emotional indulgence. Many men ruin their progress by permitting their feelings to rise and fall without discipline. One day they are lifted by enthusiasm, the next they are drowned by discouragement. This fluctuation disrupts the rhythm required for execution. A man must govern his emotional temperature, ensuring that it remains warm enough to fuel his purpose, yet calm enough to preserve his judgment. No flame burns steadily when fed by uncontrolled winds. Execution without leak requires the shaping of deliberate environments, spaces that strengthen the mind's purpose. A man cannot expect to rise while living among influences that weaken him. Disorder breeds confusion. Noise breeds distraction. Idleness breeds drift. The successful man arranges his surroundings as a builder arranges his tools, with intention. He places within reach only those influences that sharpen his mind. He removes everything that dulls it. Andrew Carnegie demonstrated this principle with remarkable precision. He surrounded himself with capable minds, men whose counsel lifted his thinking and whose presence demanded excellence. He refused to tolerate influences that conflicted with his vision. His environment was not luxurious. It was deliberate. Because his surroundings obeyed his purpose, his mind remained sharp, and his execution remained firm. A man who neglects his environment will find his strength leaking through 1,000 unseen cracks. Another pillar of execution is useful companionship. No man builds anything of significance alone. He requires minds that challenge him, strengthen him, and steady him. Not friends who soothe his weaknesses, but allies who sharpen his strengths. A man who surrounds himself with idle thinkers becomes idle. A man who surrounds himself with builders becomes a builder. Companionship shapes execution. It influences pace, tone, and seriousness. Gonzalez's rise was fueled not only by his own decision, but by the company he kept. He sought men of vision, men of purpose, men whose presence kindled his own determination. These companions provided counsel, encouragement, and perspective. They did not weaken him with doubt. They strengthened him with harmony. Useful companionship accelerates execution by multiplying clarity. Execution without leak also demands the practice of self-alignment. A man's thoughts, words, and actions must point in the same direction. If he thinks one thing, speaks another, and does a third, his power becomes divided. His subconscious cannot obey conflicting commands. His energy becomes confused. His results become scattered. But when his thoughts support his words, and his words support his actions, he becomes a single force instead of a divided one. Alignment strengthens identity. Alignment sharpens discipline. Alignment anchors the blueprint within him. Many men speak boldly of their aims, but act timidly in their daily affairs. Others act boldly, but speak with doubt. Others think grandly, but behave weakly. None of these men succeed. But the man who aligns all parts of his nature becomes like a beam of concentrated light, powerful because it is unified. Another requirement of execution is the habit of completing what you begin. A man who starts many things and finishes few becomes a collector of fragments. His life becomes a graveyard of half-built structures. His mind never learns endurance. His character never learns discipline. But the man who completes even small tasks trains himself for larger ones. Completion strengthens confidence. Confidence fuels action. Action creates momentum. Charles M. Schwab was known not only for his enthusiasm, but for his ability to bring matters to completion. His associates trusted him because he finished what he began. This habit distinguished him from men whose work constantly lagged behind their promises. Completion is a sign of character. It seals execution. Another danger to execution is self-negotiation. When a man begins bargaining with himself, asking whether he should proceed, whether he feels ready, whether conditions are ideal, he opens the door to drift. Drift is subtle. It enters through small concessions. But once present, it unravels discipline. Therefore, a man must avoid self-negotiation. His decisions must not be open for reconsideration each day. His task is to follow, not debate. Execution without leak requires also the art of progress measurement, not measurement for vanity, but measurement for alignment. A man must know whether his actions mirror his aim. He must ensure that his days reflect his direction. A builder consults his blueprint regularly, not to admire it, but to ensure obedience to it. Likewise, you must examine your own conduct with honesty. Does today resemble the life you intend to build? Does it strengthen the structure or weaken it? The man who practices these principles will notice a profound change in how others respond to him. They will sense his steadiness. They will trust his reliability. They will offer cooperation more freely. They will treat him as a man destined to rise, not because he boasts, but because his conduct reveals seriousness. His identity grows stronger with each act of disciplined execution. Let me speak plainly. Fortune does not reward occasional effort. It rewards character expressed through repetition. Execution without leak transforms a man into the sort of builder the world cannot resist. Opportunity gravitates toward him. Allies seek him. Ideas visit him. Strength fills him. He becomes inevitable. Every structure draws its strength not only from its design, but from the builder who executes it. A weak builder ruins a perfect plan. A divided builder breaks the finest sequence. A careless builder turns opportunity into rubble. This is why the final and most decisive part of the blueprint concerns not what you must do, but what you must become. For no blueprint can succeed if the man holding it remains the same untested self who once drifted, doubted, delayed, and surrendered to small habits. A new structure requires a new builder, and success, true, lasting, unshakable success, cannot remain in the hands of a man whose identity contradicts the life he seeks. Every man carries two identities within him, the identity he inherited from years of unconscious living, and the identity he must forge through deliberate obedience to law. The first identity is shaped by circumstance, suggestion, fear, memory, and habit. The second identity is shaped by purpose, discipline, decision, and the repetition of thoughts that strengthen character. The tragedy of most lives is that men allow the inherited identity to rule them. They continue to act as the man they once were, and then wonder why their future looks like their past. But the man who rises understands this great truth. Identity can be remade. Before you accept this truth, you must first understand what identity truly is. Identity is not how others see you. It is how you behave when alone. Identity is not the words you speak. It is the pattern your actions repeat. Identity is not the dreams you admire. It is the standard you obey. Identity is not the voice you use in public. It is the voice you follow in private. Identity is the inner architecture of your character, the structure that determines how you react, how you decide, how you persist, how you endure, how you rise. Every man's results are the outward reflection of his inner identity. A timid identity produces timid choices. A doubtful identity produces doubtful steps. A dishonest identity produces disordered outcomes. And a drifting identity produces a drifting life. But a decisive identity produces decisive achievement. A disciplined identity produces disciplined progress. A courageous identity produces courageous opportunity. A trustworthy identity produces trustworthy alliances. This is why identity is the final law of the blueprint. Your results cannot rise higher than the builder within you. Look again at the life of Andrew Carnegie. Long before wealth entered his hands, his identity had been transformed. As a young messenger boy, he carried himself with the calm confidence of a man destined for industry. He disciplined his speech, refined his manners, chose his company with care, and honored the work before him even when it seemed small. These actions were not acts of play. They were acts of identity formation. Carnegie knew that the man he became would attract the fortune he sought. He built himself first. Wealth came afterward. The same truth appears in the life of Lincoln. His presidency was not an accident bestowed upon him by circumstance. It was the natural result of a character that had been shaped for years by hardship, reflection, and moral discipline. Long before he led a nation, he led himself. Long before he inspired millions, he governed his own thought. His identity became a refuge of stability in a time of national turmoil. The world rose to meet the identity he had forged. You must now ask yourself, what identity have I allowed to govern me? Is it the identity of a man who persists or one who flees? Is it the identity of a man who obeys his purpose or one who negotiates with it? Is it the identity of a man who commands his mind or one who is ruled by it? Is it the identity of a builder or that of a wanderer? If the answers trouble you, then rejoice, for you stand at the beginning of freedom. Identity is not fixed. It is not inherited permanently. It is not chained to your past. It is built piece by piece through disciplined thought, repetition, and action. The identity you desire is waiting to be constructed, and the blueprint you have received is the tool by which it may be formed. The first step in becoming the builder is self-governance. A man cannot lead a business, a family, a community, or a purpose if he cannot first lead himself. Self-governance means mastering your impulses, directing your thoughts, controlling your speech, and choosing your actions deliberately. It means refusing to be ruled by moods. It means obeying your chosen purpose regardless of how you feel. A man who cannot govern himself cannot advance. He is like a ship without a rudder. Say often, I step fully into the identity that makes my success inevitable. These words are not a wish. They are a command. When repeated with faith, they signal to the subconscious that the old identity has been dismissed and a new one installed. This affirmation strengthens the internal architecture that supports disciplined effort. The next step in becoming the builder is integrity of character. Integrity is not simply honesty, though honesty is part of it. Integrity means wholeness. It means that your thoughts, words, and actions align. It means you do not speak one aim and follow another. It means you do not declare discipline and then practice indulgence. It means your conduct forms a single line from intention to result. A man who lives in contradiction weakens himself daily. A man who lives in integrity strengthens himself daily. Observe Cyrus H.K. Curtis. His empire of publishing grew from the reputation of a man whose word could be trusted without hesitation. His character purchased opportunities no wealth alone could buy. Men around him felt safe in his presence, for they knew he did not speak lightly. His identity as a man of integrity pulled resources, allies, and fortune toward him. Becoming the builder also requires courage, not the loud courage of dramatic daring, but the quiet courage of unbroken forward motion. Courage means advancing when you are unsure. It means persisting when results are distant. It means believing in your aim when others doubt you. Courage is the virtue that carries all other virtues into action. Without courage, even the finest blueprint crumbles beneath fear's weight. Consider Barnes again. His journey to Edison's door required courage. He possessed neither wealth nor influence, but he possessed an identity that believed it belonged in the presence of greatness. That identity carried him across miles, through uncertainty, and into the opportunity that changed his life. Courage formed his identity. Identity formed his destiny. Another pillar of identity is discipline. Discipline means doing what must be done when it must be done, whether desire accompanies the task or not. Discipline is the mark of a man who has placed purpose above comfort. Comfort weakens identity. Discipline strengthens it. Each act of discipline adds a stone to the inner structure of character. Over time, this structure becomes unshakable. Discipline transforms a man into one who can be trusted, with tasks, with time, with opportunity, with responsibility. The world opens its doors to disciplined men. It closes them to the undisciplined. Identity is also shaped by repetition. You do not become decisive through one decisive act. You become decisive through repeated decision. You do not become courageous through one act of bravery. You become courageous through repeated courage. You do not become disciplined through one disciplined choice. You become disciplined through repeated obedience. Repetition builds identity. Identity builds destiny. The subconscious mind accepts whatever is repeated. If you repeatedly think as a small man, speak as a small man, and behave as a small man, you will become a small man. But if you repeatedly think as a builder, speak as a builder, and act as a builder, you will become one. The subconscious has no choice but to obey identity. Becoming the builder requires the art of self-respect. A man cannot rise if he does not believe he deserves to rise. Self-respect is earned through conduct. When you keep your promises to yourself, self-respect grows. When you betray your promises to yourself, self-respect shrinks. The man who holds himself in contempt cannot hope to be trusted by others. The man who respects himself attracts respect from the world. Identity also demands loyalty to purpose. A man cannot serve two masters. He cannot be governed by purpose and governed by distraction at the same time. Loyalty means guarding your aim as a soldier guards his post. It means refusing temptations that would weaken your direction. It means keeping your vision before you when others forget theirs. The transformation into the builder requires sacrifice. Not sacrifice for suffering's sake, but sacrifice as exchange. You must give up the habits, company, and comforts of the old identity. You must surrender the excuses that once softened your failures. You must abandon the behaviors that tethered you to smallness. Sacrifice is the doorway through which identity passes into a higher life. Woolworth sacrificed stability for vision. Curtis sacrificed leisure for mastery. Gonzalez sacrificed safety for purpose. Each man surrendered something, not because he enjoyed sacrifice, but because he understood that the old identity could not cross into the new world he sought. Identity also requires patience, not passive patience, but disciplined patience, the kind that understands that character forms quietly, beneath the surface, long before the world recognizes it. A man must allow time to harden the structure he is building within himself. The impatient man ruins his own construction by acting before he is ready. The patient man rises when his identity has ripened. Becoming the builder also demands the removal of pride. Pride weakens identity by convincing a man he can succeed without growth. Pride persuades him that discipline is beneath him, that correction is unnecessary, that learning is a burden. Pride is the enemy of all builders. Humility, however, strengthens identity. It keeps the mind teachable. It keeps the heart steady. It keeps the purpose pure. The final stage of identity is embodiment. This occurs when the man no longer forces himself to act according to his chosen standard. He simply is the standard. His thoughts align without effort. His decisions arise naturally. His actions follow with ease. The blueprint is no longer a plan he studies. It is a reflection of who he has become. Others will notice. They will treat you differently, not out of admiration, but out of recognition. They will speak to you with greater respect. They will trust your judgment. They will sense your seriousness. They will respond to the authority of your identity. At this point, success becomes inevitable. Not because luck favors you, not because the world suddenly changes, but because you have become the kind of man success does not flee from. Success gravitates toward you. It finds you. It recognizes you. It settles upon you as naturally as fruit settles upon a tree whose roots have been strengthened through seasons of disciplined growth. The blueprint is now complete. Not because you have reached the end of this instruction, but because you have reached the beginning of yourself. Now that the blueprint has been placed in your hands and the parts have been laid before you with precision, we arrive at the moment few men ever reach, the moment of standing between two lives. On one side lies the life you have lived, shaped by habit, shaped by drift, shaped by faint decisions made in quiet resignation. On the other side lies the life that still waits for you, untouched, unclaimed, unspoiled by hesitation. Between the two lives stands only one thing: you. Not your circumstances, not your history, not the world. Only you. This epilogue is not a conclusion. It is the crossing. You must understand now with sharp clarity that a blueprint holds no magic of its own. It is nothing but ink and instruction until the builder touches it with conviction. 1,000 blueprints have died in the desks of architects who hesitated. 1,000 more have faded in the hands of men who admired design but feared labor. Only the builder who obeys the blueprint shapes the structure. And so the final question of this journey is not whether the blueprint works. It does. The question is whether you will take the step that separates intention from transformation. Let us examine the truth plainly, without ornament. You cannot return to the man you were before hearing these instructions. That man has been measured, recognized, and revealed. His habits have been exposed, his doubts identified, his drift acknowledged. He stands now as a figure of the past, not to be condemned, but to be completed. You owe him gratitude, but you owe him no loyalty. He brought you to the threshold, but he cannot enter the new world with you. If you cling to him, the blueprint dies. If you release him, the blueprint becomes your inheritance. In my studies of thousands of men, I discovered that the greatest turning point in any life is not the moment of success, but the moment of final decision, the moment a man decides that he will never again return to who he once was. Some men experience this in silence, in a small room, late at night, with no witness but their conscience. Some feel it during struggle, when their past life collapses and demands to be rebuilt. Others reach it through instructions such as this, where the patterns of success reveal themselves so clearly that the mind awakens to its own possibility. Wherever it occurs, this turning point changes everything. The man who reaches it becomes unrecognizable to his former self. His thoughts sharpen. His speech becomes measured. His conduct gains weight. He begins to see himself not as one who tries, but as one who completes. The world senses a shift in him. Opportunity senses it. Even adversity senses it. For adversity, when placed before such a man, loses much of its bitterness. It discovers it cannot bend the will of one who has decided to rise. I have said often that desire is the beginning of all achievement. But there is something deeper than desire, something rarer, something more potent. It is the decision to belong to one's desire. The decision to shape character until destiny recognizes it. Some call this faith. Others call it resolve. I call it identity. And identity, once solidified, makes success a law, not an accident. This epilogue is written not to inspire, but to finalize, to bring the blueprint into your very breath. You must now examine your own conduct with seriousness. Will you become the builder, or will you continue as the wanderer? The builder shapes his hours with discipline. The wanderer waits for conditions to favor him. The builder gives commands to his mind. The wanderer obeys his moods. The builder holds himself to a higher standard. The wanderer seeks excuses to justify the lesser one. The builder welcomes structure. The wanderer resists it, for structure exposes weakness. Yet only through exposure can weakness be corrected. This decision cannot be forced upon you. Freedom demands that you choose for yourself. But consider this truth. A man cannot delay a decision without making one. If he postpones, he has chosen drift. If he hesitates, he has chosen weakness. If he waits for a sign, he has chosen surrender. Only the man who moves immediately has chosen progress. You may believe you need more clarity. You do not. You may believe you need more confidence. You do not. You may believe you must feel ready. You do not. Readiness is not a condition of action. Readiness is the result of it. No builder feels ready before raising the first wall. He becomes ready by working. Likewise, no man becomes ready for success by waiting. He becomes ready by stepping into the identity that success demands. Let us turn our attention to a profound law that governs all growth. A man becomes the thing he repeatedly does. This law cares nothing for intention. It responds only to repetition. If a man repeats weakness, he becomes weak. If he repeats postponement, he becomes one who postpones. If he repeats drift, drift becomes his nature. But if he repeats disciplined action, he becomes disciplined. If he repeats decision, he becomes decisive. If he repeats courage, he becomes courageous. If he repeats loyalty to his aim, he becomes a man whose life bends toward purpose as naturally as iron bends toward magnetism. Identity is not sculpted in a single moment. It is shaped by thousands of moments. Moments often so small that the world overlooks them. You wake at the hour you instructed yourself to wake. You speak the words that align with your aim. You perform the action you promised yourself to perform. You maintain your direction when distraction calls. You keep your own command. Each of these small acts adds a stone to the inner architecture of identity. Eventually, the structure becomes so strong that failure cannot collapse it. Examine the lives of the great industrialists. You will find this law at work. Carnegie did not become a giant through one decision. He became a giant through thousands of disciplined choices. Ford did not emerge as a leader by sudden transformation. He grew into leadership through repetition of sound habits. Edison did not become a symbol of ingenuity through flashes of brilliance alone. He became one through the relentless practice of daily advancement. These men repeated the conduct of greatness until greatness became the natural extension of their identity. Now let us consider the inner companion of identity, self-respect. A man cannot rise higher than the opinion he holds of himself. But self-respect is not built by flattery, it is built by obedience to one's own highest standard. Each time a man breaks his own promise, he wounds his self-respect. Each time he honors it, he strengthens it. A man with low self-respect sabotages his own progress because he believes he does not deserve more. A man with strong self-respect advances naturally because he believes he is worthy of his aim. Thus, if you would rise, you must guard your promises to yourself with the seriousness of sacred vows. The blueprint you have received demands such promises, not vast ones, but daily ones. Quiet commitments kept faithfully. These commitments may appear small, but they are the hinges upon which great doors swing. A man who keeps small promises cannot fail to keep large ones. A man who breaks small promises cannot hope to keep large ones. Identity is not measured by ambition. It is measured by consistency. Another ingredient in the making of the builder is moral power. Moral power is not virtue in the superficial sense. It is the inner force that comes from aligning one's life with principles that strengthen character. A man with moral power does not require outward authority. His presence commands respect because his identity is firm. He does not speak loudly, yet his words carry weight. He does not demand trust, yet trust gathers around him. Moral power attracts opportunity, for opportunity seeks capable hands. This does not mean the builder must be perfect. It means he must be sincere in his pursuit of a higher version of himself. A man who strives honestly toward better conduct gains more moral power than a man who pretends virtue without effort. Hypocrisy weakens identity. Sincerity strengthens it. No man rises by deceiving himself. Now we come to a deeper law. A man cannot build new results while protecting old wounds: bitterness, resentment, regret, shame. These are weights that anchor identity to the past. A builder cannot carry such loads. He must release them as a smith releases slag from molten metal. The past may instruct you, but it must not imprison you. Every man who has risen to significance has cast aside the remnants of his old identity. Carnegie forgave those who doubted him. Lincoln forgave those who wronged him. Edison forgave every failure. These men freed themselves by refusing to drag unnecessary weight into the future. If you are to become the builder, you must do the same. Forgive yourself for who you were. Forgive others for what they did. The blueprint cannot rise upon a foundation of resentment. Only a clear heart can carry a great structure. Another part of your identity is shaped by who you stand beside. Companionship influences character more deeply than most men realize. You cannot become a builder while keeping company with those who celebrate drift. You cannot rise while surrounded by those who fear advancement. The builder must be selective. He chooses companions whose conduct aligns with his aim. He seeks those who sharpen thought, elevate spirit, deepen purpose. He withdraws from those who blur the blueprint with careless words. This is not arrogance, it is stewardship. You are responsible for the cultivation of your own mind. Do not place it in the hands of men who do not respect the direction you have chosen. Let us now reflect on something the world often misunderstands. Identity grows inwardly first, then outwardly. Others will not see your transformation immediately. They may even doubt it. But this matters little. A man's identity changes long before the world acknowledges it. The seed of oak does not show its strength at once, yet the strength is there. When you discipline your thought, the world may not notice. When you discipline your actions, the world may still not notice. But eventually, as your identity sharpens, the world will feel your seriousness. They will see it in your eyes, hear it in your voice, and sense it in your presence. You must accept that your rise will be quiet at first. The world does not applaud foundations. It applauds the tower. But the tower cannot stand without the hidden work beneath. Do not seek approval while building the unseen parts of your identity. The time for recognition will come later, and it will come precisely when you no longer need it. Identity, in its highest form, becomes destiny's signal. It informs the world that you are ready for the opportunities you once feared, ready for the alliances you once squandered, ready for the responsibilities you once avoided. Success does not visit the unprepared. It visits those whose identity has ripened through disciplined obedience to law. I must warn you now of a danger that appears at this stage of the journey, the temptation to admire the blueprint instead of obeying it. Many men gather knowledge in the hope that knowledge alone will change their lives. But knowledge does nothing unless given form through action. The blueprint gains no power from being understood. It gains power only from being executed. Do not become a collector of insight. Become a builder of destiny. Another danger is overreach, attempting to perform all parts of the blueprint at once. This leads to collapse. A builder constructs one part at a time. Likewise, you must take one step, reinforce it, then take the next. The blueprint is designed to be obeyed in sequence. Do not rush. Build deliberately. Build with patience. Build with the quiet certainty that every stone placed with discipline brings you closer to the life you are shaping. I have reached the final truth of this epilogue, and perhaps the most consequential truth of all. A man becomes free the moment he takes full responsibility for his identity. Not partial responsibility, not convenient responsibility, full responsibility. The man who blames others remains bound to those he blames. The man who excuses himself remains bound to his excuses. But the man who accepts responsibility becomes sovereign. He takes command of his future because he has taken command of himself. All four parts of this blueprint lead to this sovereignty. Part 1 clears the mind. Part 2 establishes the sequence, and Part 3 sharpens execution. Part 4 transforms the builder. When a man obeys all four, he no longer tries to rise. He rises naturally, as flame rises from fire. Now, take a breath. Slow, deliberate, aware. You have reached the end of instruction, but not the end of possibility. This is where the world steps aside and waits to see who you will become. The map you were given earlier in life was too small for you. This blueprint is not. You now hold in your hands the architecture of a greater life. The next step is not written here. It must be written in your conduct. And so I leave you with the only words that matter now. Begin.